Sometime this week we're going to find out. So if it's good news, text me, email me, call me, okay? If it's bad news, wait till I get home.
Oh, he is next to me.
Yeah, it is hot in there.
I was Jamie.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to December's BCC meeting. Before we begin, I would like to introduce our newest board member who's here with us today, Mr. David Kring. He is replacing Barbara Hurt-Simmons, and we elected him by special board election in our November board meeting. And so you can go ahead, maybe after the meeting, introduce yourself to David. We welcome him and very happy to see him at BCC. Oh yes, I should mention that. He is, his son is a first grader at Lineville Elementary, and he has oh, very good. And he has a 4-year-old daughter who's a rising kindergartner. So welcome, David. All right, so our first item, request approval for the ESL elementary progress report.
Thank you, Mrs. Granny. Hear me? Thank you. So, the ESL progress report is newly created by the ESL teachers this year in response to information that we gleaned from the summer symposium that all ESL students need to be graded similarly to our gen ed students, and that if we wanted to report progress on their proficiency, it needed to be done through a progress report. So our ESL teachers worked with our consortium, our ESL consortium partner through the Chester County Intermediate Unit. Her name is Pat Verbotsky. Pat was the ESL supervisor in the Westchester Area School District. She's now retired. So Pat worked with the teachers on a frame for the progress report, and the teachers then dug in and got this document completed in probably, what, Monica, a day and a half. Yeah, they really worked very hard. So Monica Luna, who is one of our ESL teachers who worked on the progress report with the other 5 teachers, is here to just talk and give us a little bit of detail about the report, what it tells, how it's aligned to standards, etc. So Monica?
Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? So like Dr. McNeil did say, Pat Grabowski is the IU consultant. And the first day we really just looked at a few different samples and tried to develop our framework of thinking and what we kind of wanted to get out of it. So the following day was just the 6 of us just pulling our resources together. And we used a couple different samples for the formatting of it. But as far as each stage that's listed there, we use the WIDA Can't Do standards. And Pennsylvania is part of the WIDA consortium. So It automatically aligns with the two standards that are listed up there. The listening and speaking is on the first page, and then on the second page is the reading and writing.
Now, Monica, for the audience, could you just tell us what WIDA is and what
Sure.
can-do statements mean?
Yes, so WIDA stands for World Class Instructional Design and Assessment, and they provide us with a lot of different resources throughout the state that everybody can use. It's free. And the can-do standards are developed, there's kindergarten, first through second, and then third through fifth. So there are grade level clusters, but we chose some from each different grade so that it would match the different levels that we have listed there. Does that make sense? So it's all positive rather than saying what they can't do. The idea is this is what they are able to do. Does anybody have any questions?
When would this go into effect?
So it would go into effect for this reporting period, so that this report would go home, this progress report would go home with the ESAR.
Yeah, ideally we'd like to align it with the ESAR so everything moves on at the same time.
It just gives the students and their parents a sense that progress is being made. That while they may be struggling with the language and have some difficulty with the academics or the academic language, that they are doing better with the language proficiency, their English language proficiency.
And the first box up there says WIDA Access Block Scores. The WIDA Access is the yearly assessment that they're given in order to exit. So it's broken down listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and then the composite. The WACT is the, if the student is new to the country, that's the screener that they would use to see if they qualify for ESL.
This is for Tony.
I'm just wondering how you deliver it to parents, because if the children are having difficulty and it's their second language, it's a great report, but can parents understand it?
Yes, so ideally, we wanted this to be approved first. Ideally, we'd like to have it translated into Spanish, because that's about half of our population. Some of our parents are literate in English, so they would definitely benefit, but to reach more parents, we'd like to get it translated.
Are you looking after the proof of concept or the initial year to track this digitally or electronically? To do any data aggregation?
Do you mean to do in a form format?
A form and or to analyze the data on a more global perspective?
Sure.
Such as?
Are
Are you saying to put it into
So
the
for,
ESAR?
well, or something like the ESAR, like we look at the statistics that come out of the ESARs to help drive some instruction. So are we gonna look to do that to see if we need to do anything with the programming? I just wanna know if I need to foreshadow it for an information system at some point in time.
Yeah, I think we do recognize that this is going to be, we're going to have to modify some things and see what's working and what doesn't work. That's kind of like a working process, but I mean, sure, absolutely. The WIDA access scores are the yearly like benchmark sort of, and then everything else is what we've seen through formative assessments basically.
So is the special ed progress report in digital format
Yes, it's kept in IEP.
or an IEP plus?
Correct, so that's why I'm wondering is do I need to find a system to contain this information that teachers can access and produce such a progress report?
I think probably, just thinking about this right now, we would want to see what that looks like. So what would that look like? What would it entail? What would it do for us in terms of sharing that kind of information across?
And there are only 6 of us. So before we were actually using just a Word document and everything was pretty narrative. There wasn't any kind of form like this, so this is a huge change for us. But I think it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Can I just get a copy of the electronic document?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Board okay to move this forward? Okay. Next, we are requesting approval of the following new courses and name changes to the current courses to be included in the 16-17 program of study. We talked about this last month. I think the biggest change here, Dr. McNeil, is that there is going to be a name change that we didn't talk about, actually for both 9th and 10th grade history. You can see that at the bottom, from African Nation Studies is going to now become World History, Eastern Civilizations. And sophomore year, the 10th grade one, Western Civilizations, will now be called World History, Western Civilizations.
That's correct, Mrs. Grant.
Anything else you need to add, Dr. McNeil?
I do not.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Tony?
There's been some discussion among the board members about, I don't think anyone is not interested in adding the AP courses. We're all looking forward to that. However, what staffing implications it might have, and if perhaps the principals would consider, if there aren't enough, let's say there's, 12 for one class and 15 for another, that they might consider alternating some of their English classes or some of their science classes from year to year, so that you could have a full class and offer it, as opposed to running classes of the sizes of District 15. I know that's our standard, but we are a little concerned about the possible staffing.
Or the AP Physics courses, Mrs. Bertrand, is that?
Well, I think just AP, and I think that, sure, the physics classes, but even the creative writing course, we'd like to see it run. Not sure how large a class you're going to get, and maybe if they can pair it with one of the other English courses so that it runs every other week, if that's the way to still offer it.
Okay. We can certainly look at either and both of those.
I think actually that would hold true for social studies too.
Oh, absolutely, all the
Right.
AP courses, because we've added so many.
I know some didn't run this year because there weren't enough participants, so maybe a way around that is offering some of them on an every other year basis.
And if we're running that AP Scholars program now, where guidance counselors are going to sit down and help students map out what their potential AP schedule might be, maybe that's another conversation to be held with guidance also, so that, we can encourage kids to take the courses and still be able to offer them.
Still be able to offer them, but within some parameters.
Any other questions or comments?
I know I'm walking in late and hear the whole conversation, but I second the idea of at least considering offering other courses.
Thank you, Mrs. Simino.
Okay, board, okay to move this forward then? Yes. Good. The next is the request of the approval of the STEM Academy 16-17 program of study, which I believe hasn't changed since last year.
No changes, Mrs. Crane. There's just one minor change. There had been, we changed this in this year's East and West program of study where we mentioned online or correspondence courses. We don't have any correspondence courses, so I just deleted the word or correspondence courses from where, from what Mr. Campbell had on that page. I don't recall the page, but that was the one thing that I changed. So, Mr. Campbell, there are no other changes, correct?
Okay, board, any questions or comments? We're able to move this forward? Yep. Okay, next, request approval to purchase display boards for use by the art department at a cost of $18,189 plus $1,200 shipping and handling for a total cost of $19,300.
So, Mrs. Craney, Mrs. Domino, there's Julie. Mrs. Domino just had a couple of things that she wanted to talk about. Not sure that the board was clear about how old the boards, the display boards were, how many there were, where they're located, and what the future location of those boards might be. Mrs.
Yes.
Domino?
So most of our teachers in our district, at West are new and at East, have been around since, I guess, the 90s. And I guess they said
much before them, how long they were at West prior to that, so they're at least from the 90s. The East has 84 boards currently, and West has 133. However, most of the boards at East are not usable, so they've just been sitting there. Right now, West has the boards located in a shed, and East has it in an art closet. But once we remove the old ones, we agreed that we're going to store all of them over at East in the art closet where it's temperature controlled, waterproof, to keep them safe. So I hope that answered all the questions that you had on that.
So these boards, the new ones will be used across both high schools or all three?
It can actually be used across the whole district. We borrowed both middle schools and even Marsh Creek borrowed boards from the high schools, and they are really heavy and awkward and terrible condition. So this would be something that we can use across all areas.
Are you gonna just get rid of the ones we have then?
Yeah, the ones that we have aren't usable anymore, and it takes about 3 or 4 people to set up each one, so to keep them, it doesn't make sense for space, and it doesn't make sense for usage. The new ones, I can carry 3 by myself, so the old one, a little heavier and more awkward.
Is there an added disposal cost to
I don't know what we do for, they're big compressed cardboard boards. Yeah, they're probably dumpster worthy. There's no metal or anything like that.
And facilities did check to see that they could not be reconditioned, so we can certainly check, Mr. Freeman, to see if there is some kind of special disposal that they need with facilities. Check with facilities
We
about
can always say if somebody wants to cut them down and use little squares for something as well. Always a possibility. But just so you know, I did go through a huge amount of websites, and I actually broke it down by square foot. And this is the best deal out of all of them by a lot. So even with shipping and even with a couple pieces of hardware, it's still a better deal than all the other ones that are comparable.
And I believe Mrs. Piper also
Mhm.
looked at the quotes, Julie.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Can we move this forward? Yes? Good? Okay, good. Next, request approval to purchase the Capstone software for the physics labs at East High School at a cost of $499 plus 16 shipping and handling for a total cost of $515.
So I'm going to let Mr. Tucker talk about the need for Capstone at East versus Vernier that we're using at West High School.
Okay. Both physics departments at East and West have Vernier equipment for physics. At East, they also have equipment that runs on the Pasco brand. Both facilities have Logger Pro. Logger Pro is able to run the Vernier equipment. Unfortunately, the Pasco equipment at East also requires specialized software. This was originally Data Studio, and it is now obsolete. In order to continue using the Pasco equipment, which makes up about half the physics equipment at East, we would need to get the updated version, which is called Capstone. The cost for the facility, and it's a indefinite license until it becomes obsolete, is $515.
$499. They're quoted.
Oh,
Because it's a
I see.
digital download.
Okay, very good.
And that's one time only?
One time only. For facility, that will cover a licensing for all of East. If we need to move equipment back or forth, both facilities and physics teachers have agreed to share the equipment and also send laptops loaded with that program if it's needed.
Within the building.
I'm sorry?
Within the building, when you're talking about the sharing within the building.
The equipment would possibly go to West. If it went to West, then we would need to expand the license. We don't think, the teachers don't think that's necessary at this time. West is able to do all the necessary academic labs. They don't need the Pasco equipment.
I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, move forward. Next, request approval to purchase 1,850 one-year online licenses for HM Alonso 2009-10 edition at $5 per
is to support the students at East, West, and both middle schools, Downingtown Middle and Lionville Middle. We have rewritten our curriculum, and we are not textbook bound anymore. And the online licenses help us access resources that we previously used for the students, and they can use those both in the classroom and at home.
So we had these before versus?
Yes, when we originally purchased the textbooks, we had a 6-year license, and now we're able to purchase them annually should we see the need for it.
Is there a benefit to buying a license for a number of years, or no?
Because we rewrote the level 1 curriculum and we're in the process of rewriting the level 2 and level 3, we're kind of waiting to see how it's used this year and what the benefit is before we commit to a number of years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay to move this forward? Okay, good. And then finally, field trips.
Okay, field trips. Great. What do we have? Oh, yes. Okay, so there's a trip to the mall. Do both together? No. So this is a curricular trip with the AP Human Geography course from Downingtown West. And the reason they're going to King of Prussia is because Exton is kind of dying and not very good. So what they do is they conduct field work, which is pretty important as far as the AP Geography course. So that's going to be a March 8th, March 11th. That's an elective, AP elective, which is a great thing.
They go for 3 days?
No, they go for 1 day.
I think it was more, no.
No, it's 3 grades.
Oh, 3 days.
It's a class that has 3 grades. They just go.
I thought you said 3 grades.
No, I'm sorry.
I'm
I'm modern sometimes. Sorry about that. So that's the only one from that. And we also have 2 other overnighters that we're going to talk about. The first of which is band trip, Downingtown West Band to Florida over Christmas. No school time is being missed. As you can see, they'll be down in Orlando and Jacksonville. They'll be at Universal, going to a couple of different workshops, and then rehearsing for the parade. They changed the name of the bowl. The bowl is called, the bowl game is on the 2nd of January, and it's now called the Tax Slayer Bowl. So I don't know if they used to be Citrus Bowl maybe, for the old times. So that's for Downingtown West. Leaving on the 28th, returning on the 3rd, back to school on the 4th. The other one is an overnighter, missing 2 days of school for the gifted program from Lionville Middle School, 8th graders, going up by bus to MIT. And they're going to be looking at experimental process, use of technology, analysis of data, and of course, one of the top media labs in the country.
Any questions? Okay to move these forward? All right. It's not even on. Okay. Is there any public input? Yes. Okay.
Hello, Pia DeSanto, Upper Euclid. I have a question, and let me preface by saying the teachers that I worked with were incredibly helpful in trying to meet this need. One of my kids was studying for a test, and there was no book and no online book. The only resources there were a couple of PowerPoints and some outlines. Now, the information that my son could process was limited to what kind of outline was there because, when you do an outline, you don't have all the inside information. And my knowledge of the subject wasn't enough that I could fill in all the details. So my question is, do we know or do we have a way of making sure that every class that's being taught has some kind of a book resource that parents can access or an online resource? And I don't mean like an outline, I mean like a full book so that we can read the chapters and make sure that the student's processing the material. I mean, I realize that education is a hand-in-hand process between the teachers and the parents, but I kind of can't do my job with it if I don't have the resources there that I need.
Sure what subject or what course?
It was a history class in 7th grade. And the teacher was wonderful. He sent me extra material, ended up sending me the book home to keep at home. But I don't think I needed to go through all those loops to kind of have that information.
So I thought you were headed to, of late, probably the last year and a half, the stance has been that we're ordering class sets of the hard copy, but an online license for every student. However, 7th grade history, so we're talking about a curriculum that was rewritten in 9-10. So there should have been, at that time, we were ordering texts for every student. So I'm not sure.
The online version was problematic earlier this year. We finally just got that resolved about 3 weeks ago, but there's a text.
All right, because this was a little before 3 weeks ago that this exam came up.
Well, the students weren't able to access the online version of the text, but every child has a book, or should have a book.
It wasn't at home. Like, I don't know if he had a book that he kept in, a classroom set doesn't mean that he could bring it home.
Well, that's what I'm saying. At that time, a book was ordered for every student. So why there isn't a book for the child in grade 7 history?
Rosie didn't have one either, and I know exactly the test you were talking about. We tried to fill in the book.
Okay.
You were nicer than I was, because I was emailing.
What's going on? I don't know.
Sorry, I'm confused here. You're saying there was an outline, was it something that wasn't covered in the text too? Or when you got the text, were you able to?
Well,
once you had the text.
I had to specifically ask to have the textbook come home, which came home after studying for the exam. So when we were trying to prepare studying for this exam, there was no textbook, either online or hardback, that we could access. There were resources in Schoology, but the resources in Schoology were basically outlines, and PowerPoint presentations, which really made filling in the gaps very difficult in trying to, help study for this exam, even though the teacher sent home an outline with questions to answer.
I get it. No, I understand now. I was confused because.
Yeah.
So, Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Can I ask you to look into that, please?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other public comment? Yes, Mr. Cruz?
I have a question regarding the bio textbooks that were selected this summer. When the curriculum was written, there were 2 textbooks, the one that we're currently using, and a textbook for the level 2. When we came back to school, there was no level 2 book. So I'm wondering, and I come to all these meetings, I don't remember that ever being discussed, that we were going to mix that textbook. And so now we have students that are in phase 2, which is 2 levels. To get in that class, you have to read 2 levels below grade level. Reading a book that is a 12th grade book.
So, the choice between the 2 books, we did readability on it, and there was a 50 Lexile point difference between the 2 books. The one book that teachers had identified as a level 2, and the Cengage book that was purchased for everyone. The Cengage book had embedded videos. So in other words, the student, I think Eric showed that, but you open the book to the chapter, you click on the video while you're in the chapter, the video explains the content. The other book, you had to go out of the book. So the videos were in a holding tank, so to speak. So here's chapter 1, you come out of chapter 1 and you go to the video that's connected to chapter 1. So the readability paired with the functionality of embedded video along with the text being able to be read to the student, so you can click on read and the text will be read to the student, kind of leveled the playing field in terms of accessibility for any student, regardless of their proficiency with reading.
What is 50 Lexile points mean?
So in a Lexile range, typically you have 200 points that defines a range. So anything within those 200 points would put it at the same readability level. So the textbooks, the two different textbooks had a 50 Lexile point difference, which means they were within the same range of reading difficulty with 50 points. Typically it's 200 from within the range.
And how do you calculate the Lexile point? I'm just trying to understand.
So readability is calculated by multisyllabic words, the structure of sentences. Typically biology books are very high readability just because of the nature of the vocabulary in a biology course.
So how did you come up with the 50-point differential? Does a computer do that?
So Eric had a readability done on them by the reading specialist. So the reading specialist.
The reading specialist.
Mhm. Yes.
I mean, if I speak words that you don't understand, that's as difficult as trying to read words that you can't understand. So, and I love the Cengage book, love it. But for a level 2, what I'm hearing is the level 2 teachers are, it's really difficult for those students to read that. Real.
I think the course is probably a very difficult course for any child who's having reading issues, which then brings it to the whole notion of, do we need to teach children with reading difficulties reading in that content area? How's the text organized? How's this chapter organized? Is there a way that I can show you how this information is organized so that you can process it better? Because just to read a textbook for a kid with reading difficulties isn't going to make much difference if the text is difficult and the content is difficult, right? So I think with children who have reading problems, it becomes, what's the essence of the content? Because, you know, the kids who catch on a little easier can have more information. We have to, like, narrow this down to the essential content, and then we'll have time to teach the reading strategies that the kids would need to have to understand the content in this course. Because you can't spend a lot of time on reading in the content area and also get to an overload of content. So what's the essential content, which I think what the teachers have been trying to do, the IBC teachers, when they've been working with George on these, the days that they opted, 3 or 4 days, I think the last one was last week, right? They're trying to do some of that with the children in this course. I don't know, George, if you have any more.
We have the level 2 teacher, Mr. Vandergoes at East, and Billy Joe at West. Both have worked together at 1 or 2 of those sessions. It's primarily IBC. The idea, though, is the reading interventions can then be designed and also a more focused curriculum. In other words, within the keystone requirements for biology, but narrow what is being taught, but then infuse it with reading supports. We're actively trying to develop a new program, primarily in IBC, but as I mentioned, we're including the level 2 teachers, and they're very encouraged by it. I think they like the direction we're going with that.
I think at one of the meetings, our reading curriculum leader, Tracy Resto, was part of the meeting. She was showing the teachers the literacy e-handbook that was created probably a year and a half ago. So I don't underestimate the challenge of doing this for the teachers. It's just that in some ways, when you buy a book that's so interactive and so engaging, it seems an insult to me to not offer that same book to a child who is struggling with reading just because they're having some difficulty with reading words. So I think we, as educators, as tough as it is maybe sometimes, is that maybe we need to revamp how we think about presenting that book to a student. Yes, Mrs. Simon.
Do you still have the books? Is it possible to offer the use of that textbook in addition to the other book?
So this was a book that we were going to order, so 2 separate books.
Oh.
Order one for the level 2 and one for the honors level 1 students.
Sorry.
The original two books were sold.
Yes, Mrs. Virginia.
I guess my other question is, I know there's been a lot of discussion back and forth about level 2 classes and their success or not success, and whether it's a level we want to consider measuring with other programs. So I guess my question is, probably the bigger issue is the students that are struggling with reading and such, not to deny them this textbook, but other supplemental resources that we need to make sure students have available and their teachers, so we can, to your point, reach their reading level and let them understand the material. Because right now, I feel like we're in flux. We have an expectation, but it's hard to get there without the tools to get there.
And I think that's what George and the teachers are working on. What are the resources? The e-literacy handbook. In that e-handbook, there are strategies for teaching content literacy. So the teachers are trying those out. Is that a resource that they can use? We certainly don't want to throw at kids who are having problems reading and disconnecting with school more workbook type things. So the more engaging we can make the content, the better. But as George mentioned, this is something the teachers are exploring.
Oh, and I'm not suggesting throwing more workbooks, but, maybe there is a more simplified way to help them. Not deny them that resource, but give them additional in case they can't get the information there.
Right. Yes.
So,
Is it a book? Is it an online supplemental? What is it exactly? Is it,
but that's going to be an ongoing struggle with all our level 2
Yes.
classes, whether it's biology or history or English. So I think it's something we have to start thinking, rather than start the class and come up with the resource, we need to try and look at what the resources might be available before the class starts.
we also have to look at ourselves as well. Is it the pedagogy? Is it the instruction? Is it the way that content is being presented? Can we modify that to make it more engaging for this type of learner?
On an up note, we're looking at materials right now for the middle school for science, and one of the main vendors we're finding to be have a nice platform. They offer different lexile levels for the same students, and we're just sort of like, wow.
Yeah, that would be the idea.
Yes. And not all the vendors, but vendors are realizing that this is a direction computers will facilitate.
Thank you.
That's what the program that the reading department uses, Achieve 3000, that's what that does. So it'll take an article and it will give it to students at different lexile levels, so we're all getting the same content, but at a level, a readability level that we can access. Mr. Cruz. We'll continue to work on this because I think it is a work in progress for children.
Thank you.
Any other public input? Okay, on program information, Dr. McNeil.
Thank you, Mrs. Craney. We're going to skip over the district calendar and go to, well, you snoozed. And go right to our cyber school update. Mrs. Burke.
Virtual Academy through the CCIU for our cyber program. And if you recall, I came to the board and explained the reasons why I wanted to switch our providers, which we did. So this year we are using Connections Learning, which is a division of Pearson, for our cyber program. And so I thought, since it is a new program, that I would give you an update on how things are going. So right now we have 25 students that are registered in the program, which is above what we had last year at this time. We had 21 students that enrolled in the beginning of the school year. We had 2 join in October. Notice we had 5 that joined in November. And even as of yesterday, it was 1 processing, and as of today, it's now 2 processing. So the students, one of the advantages to the cyber program is that students do come in at all different times of the year, and because the program is self-paced, then they can do that. And it helps. Yes?
Are these our current students that are leaving our program and joining the cyber, or are they?
I'll get to that. Okay. Since the beginning of the school year, 3 students had joined the program and then left. 2 of them because they dropped completely out of school, and 1 because she returned to her brick and mortar school. And what's really great is that when we were working with BVA, we would have had to have paid for those 3 students, and then we would have just lost the money. Whereas Pearson allows us to reuse those student licenses. So if one of those students was taking 5 courses, and then a student signs up in November that's taking 5 courses, we don't have to pay for them. That student can pick up the other student's license. So we're saving quite a bit of money when the students are coming in and out with Pearson. So that's great. You can see the breakdown. Right now we have 8 12th graders all the way down to 2 6th graders. So the majority of our students right now are high school students. And the 2 6th graders are actually students who are taking 1 course in algebra because we don't currently have an algebra course at Marsh Creek. So we have both full-time and part-time students. The full-time students are ones that are taking 6 or 7 courses. And what's nice is once a student takes 6 courses, we don't have to pay for any additional courses over that. So the 7th course is a freebie. So we have 9 students that are full-time. And then for the part-time students, I actually am really happy about the part-time because that means that we're offering the students an opportunity to do some of their classes in the brick and mortar and some of their classes as cyber, which is really my goal. And so you can see we have 12 students that are taking anywhere from 3 to 5 courses and coming into the building. And then we have 4 that are taking just 1 course online. This makes me really happy. This is much different from the experience that the students had last year. We have 14 students with an A and 9 students with a B average, and so that's excellent. And one of the students who does not have an A or a B average is actually hospitalized. So I think the students are really performing very well in the program. Yeah?
Just getting back to your slide about some kids taking part-time classes.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason why they would take a part-time class through this program versus one of our blended classes?
So part-time, but by the word part-time, I mean students who are not taking a full course load cyber. So they're still taking a full cyber course, but they're not taking more than 5. So any student who's taking fewer than 5 courses through Pearson is considered part-time, because that means they're picking up other courses at school.
And we don't have a blended course that we...
No, that's the first thing we do is find out if there is a blended course for them. Absolutely. Okay, so these are just a couple things that are different from last year, and I think almost all of it is good news. Number 1, I've had 0 complaints from the parents about the platform or the rigor of the courses, so they and the students all seem very happy with this new platform, which makes me happy. One of the things that is great about Pearson is they have something called Live Tutor from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. There is a live virtual person, that's not an oxymoron, live virtual people that they can go and get tutoring from. And apparently quite a few of our students are taking advantage of this program. Also, I have started to send parents bi-monthly progress reports, and I tell them how much of the course the students have completed as opposed to how much they probably should have completed if they were on pace. And that seems to be working out very well also. One thing that's really nice about this new program is that it has something called a planner. So the computer will figure out how many days are left before the end of the semester and how much work is left, and it'll compile a planner for the students so that every day when they log in, they know how much they need to complete in order to stay on pace. If they don't complete that work, then the next day when they log in, not only will they have that day's work, but they'll have any previous work that they haven't completed. And that has been extremely useful, and all the parents and students really like that as well. The only thing that is of concern about this program is that there is no special education teacher on staff. The CCIU used to provide a special education teacher, and Pearson does not. So we have to provide the special education services. I've been working with Dr. Chance, and so I'm just bringing this to your attention, but we are working on it. We're thinking about perhaps having one special education person in Downingtown responsible for the cyber students. That's one idea. We're also meeting as a group, the supervisors, Dr. Chance and I, with the solicitor to ask some questions about some legal issues concerning how we support special ed students online. So that we are working on that, and when I get answers, I will definitely share that with the rest of the group.
Christy,
Yes?
about how many of these cyber kids are special ed?
With the exception of the students that are high-performing athletes, almost all of them. Any other questions?
How many Downingtown students are in cyber schools that are not ours? Do we still have a lot?
We do. We still have over 100 of them. So I've been doing, the problem is, it's the, object at rest will stay at rest. If they're in their cyber program, unless they're really unhappy with the program, we really need to convince them, why they need to leave and come back. So the good news is, I think that we're catching the students now before they leave, as opposed to after, which helps.
Have you contacted? I'm sure you have.
Yes. Yep. So a mailing went out in, I believe it was it was probably in the beginning of the summer, that explained the new Pearson program that was also for elementary students now. So yes, we sent that to every cyber charter school student. Mm-hmm. Other questions?
When they go to a cyber charter school on their own, we're sending special ed money with that student. Is that the way it works now?
Yep.
And with Pearson, we're not.
They're still our students.
They're
So they
still our
stay all
students,
that money. Yep.
So,
Mm-hmm. Other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Burke. Our technology update, Mrs. Windsor.
Okay. I will do my.
Are we there? There we go. I'll do my best to be brief. I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. We did something new over the holiday at Dr. Mussolin's request, in that we blocked all of our users from accessing their email. It seems to have had a positive effect. Everybody seemed to be happy, and Monday morning coming back in, and there still wasn't that plethora of email because nobody else could email you from within the school district. It was only external. So I hope you enjoyed. I have had direction from Dr. Mussolin to continue this on future holidays, so please stay tuned for future information from Dr. Mussolin. The second major thing that we're working on right now is ESAR season is upon us. Our help desk is feverishly working with all questions that are coming in from our teachers and ensuring a smooth production process. We're also working on Project Lead the Way for the middle schools and working for software deployments, and in addition, looking at equipment requirements and making sure we have the appropriate equipment or needs of appropriate equipment. And in addition, working on the high school west with aerospace. I Aspire, we've been working with Dr. Reed's office that was approved last month. He has provided us from the principals the templates for the casual walkthrough observations. In addition, we've prepared the integration files and we're proceeding with that project. We're also working with the nurses on the care flow and finishing up the implementation and tying up any loose ends. I know Diane Travis meets every Friday with our applications team to go over any revisions or areas of concern. We've been working with Eric McCumsey and Mr. Hurley on the East weight room and coverage to make sure that there's visibility, and working with facilities to make sure that the rooms are applicable from a security and coverage standpoint. We've been working with George Tucker on the Kenventory setup and getting that going for December. And then in addition, not that 15-16 isn't enough, 16-17 is quickly approaching. So we're getting ready for our scheduling season, so we're preparing all of our information systems for that. And in addition, we're also looking at our equipment analysis and working cooperatively with the curriculum department to develop our long-term educational technology plan. And that's it for technology.
Thank you, Mrs. Yenzer. Spurn. I'm sorry.
Just one question on the email. I being new didn't know it was coming.
Oh, yes.
And a lot of stuff came over on Wednesday that I didn't download and we were planning on the weekend. In future, is it possible to send a mass email just saying we're shutting down from this time to this time?
So we did. Unfortunately, we're a little new. We did send out, from what I understand, for our public relations office, Mrs. McGlone sent out school messengers, and then there were numerous internal emails as well. In addition, I believe Dr. Mussolini, and he may have worked through Dr. Reed and the principals, because there was no homework request as part of that, and there were other pieces to the initiative, and he had sent that out through either the principals or directly himself. So yes, absolutely, and we'll continue with that as we move forward. In addition, it was also posted on the district's website.
You mentioned, it's your fault, you mentioned 16, 17, so.
Oh, I know.
So, quick question about that. Is it still the district plan to move to one initiative in the high school? Is it still, are we still moving in that direction for next year?
For 16, 17,
So, is that still, and the reason I ask is for the second time since Thanksgiving break ended, which has just been 2 days, right? Because of the move to Schoology, which has been very successful, for students who do not have laptops or internet access at home, they are finding it difficult to keep up with the assignments. 2 different students have come in now, and they don't have the same ability to go online, check what assignments are due, do a quest or the various other innovative things that are happening, watching a video, and they're sort of forced into doing that during a study hall, which may be every other day or not at all.
Great
So they
question.
can use their lunch and go to the library, but again, that isn't the same amount of time as a student of the same, using access at home. So just curious where we're at, because I told the students I'd answer that.
Okay, so can I answer that with 2 different flavors?
Absolutely can.
The first is, I'm going to say stay tuned.
Okay.
January, we're going to be looking to bring that educational technology plan forward. Okay. The second piece, as far as our low income and ESL population, I'm currently working cooperatively with CHESCONET, our ISP, to see if we can't come up with a solution for those students, and or working internally within our district. There are districts outside of Downingtown that take certain other aspects and make things available through their library system, and basically a MiFi card, or also there's an approach to CHESCONET where Microsoft has actually approached CHESCONET to see if they couldn't do a scholarship program or a roaming program. So we're currently working on a strategy for those students because we absolutely see that as a need, and I'm hoping to have some sort of outcome for that this spring. That is very much on my radar.
Well, and that sounds fantastic. I want to share this. I don't believe either of the students that approach me fit that criteria, but do not have computers at home. So that, interestingly enough, I mean, there's that threshold that's pretty low to be on that, that list, but that I think we're sometimes, myself included, presuming that everyone has that.
So you think the sign out via the library system would be more applicable?
Or to have both, like to make sure that we have the loaner option as well as the, using something for Chesco.
Perfect, I'll make note of that.
This goes back to when we did the survey data of those that have access in computers. Well, if you don't have access and you don't have computers, you don't fill out the survey, so.
Well, don't forget, we send home physical copies.
Well, I know, but.
They still chose not to send them back.
Is there any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, Kelly Byrne, our school performance profile and ACT reports.
Thanks, on. Good afternoon, anybody. If you have any questions as I go through this, please ask. The first thing we'll talk about are SAT results that have been in. Just a quick reminder, SAT is given to juniors and seniors. Juniors take it in spring, seniors who decide to take it again in fall take it if they want to earn a better score. There's 3 tests, battery 3 tests that students have to take. Some colleges and universities require it, some of it recommend it. Some are actually, we're not requiring any test scores. Students want to stand at the colleges, this is one way to do it. It shows an understanding of the subject content, placement in college courses. There are scholarship opportunities. If you remember, we pay for all the sophomores and juniors to take the PSAT at this point, and that builds into that scholarship opportunity. And then the district does receive the results. More and more students are taking the ACT, and that's a national trend, not just here in Downingtown. It's juniors and seniors who take those tests. They are curriculum-based content tests of what you have been taught. There's an English, math, reading, and a science test. Students also get a composite score. Here again, some colleges want ACTs, some colleges recommend ACTs. More now are taking the ACTs and don't want the SATs. And what it is an indicator of students' success of their first year in college in that type of coursework. And it helps them to get into the right courses, it sees their strengths and their needs, and we can also use that for scheduling students while they're still in high school. And then they do get scores based on people who are in these careers at this point, the types of scores they received on the ACT when they took the test when they were in college as well. What we see happening in Downingtown Area School District, our number of test takers at East last year really didn't change a whole lot. It did decrease a little bit, but it didn't change just too much. So that was probably a good thing. Our numbers have been decreasing though, if you look at 2013, 2014. Some of that has to do with the students who went to STEM, and that was the first point that we had a graduating class from STEM. So the number of students who were enrolled did drop significantly from 2013 to 2014. If you look at the results for that year, 2013, 2014, again, we saw a decrease. That could be some STEM effect. It could be a cohort of students who were in that group. There's many factors that could be involved. If you look at our 14 to 15 results, in verbal at East, they stayed relatively statistically the same. They went down a little bit in math, but not significantly, and then there was a little bit more of a drop of our scores in the mean writing scores for our senior cohort at East of the SAT, which could be, again, a variety of reasons for that. Downingtown West, we did see a more significant drop in the number of test takers from 2014 to 2015. Some of that could be smaller class size, some of it could be more kids are taking the ACT than before, so they chose not to take the SAT. We had not a significant drop from 2013 to 2014 at West, but then we had a little more significant drop from 2014 to 2015. If we look at our results, however, here we have something to celebrate. Our mean verbal went up a little bit, even though it's slightly, it is an increase. Math stayed the same, and our writing also went up a little bit at West for our SAT results. If we look at STEM, the number of test takers from 14 to 15, and this is the graduating class, did increase dramatically from 2014 to 2015. The scores, however, did show a little bit of a decrease, especially verbally and in writing. Math stayed probably statistically about the same. Here again, it could be the nature of that cohort. It could be just the overall achievement and growth within that group of students, and that'll have to be something we look at, because we really need more than 2 years of data to start saying there's trends or to be looking at things, because we're still comparing one grade to the next, and it's kind of comparing apples and oranges depending on the kids. So if you look at the district's SAT results, we have been showing a nice increase flash from 13 to 14, we did take a dip this year. Again, we had a little bit of increase in the ACT. There might have been a decrease in the class size, which also impacted that. So we're comparing numbers to numbers, and a lot of variables could have changed that. On a very bright side, if you look at our SAT results, these are weighted means that I have to hand calculate because for some reason when the district reports came this year, they didn't include STEM's results. They're trying to fix that and include STEM results in our district results, but they didn't come like that. So I did the weighted means. I don't know if that's how they calculated for the district or not, but so that we would have something to show here. And if you look at verbal, we went up a little bit. Math, we went up a little bit. And in writing, we also went up a little bit on our SAT with our senior cohort. Any questions on SATs? All right, ACTs. Our number of ACT takers at East did increase from 2011 to 2015. We stayed the same from 14 to 15. However, some things to celebrate here. If you look from 2014 to 2015, the mean scores for 4 of the scores, those being English, reading, science, and composite scores, increased, and it stayed about the same for math. So those are definitely things to celebrate. If we look at West results, West, the number of test takers has continued to increase up through 2011 to 2014. 2014 to 15, we stayed the same. Something to definitely celebrate at West is if you look at all 5 of the test scores, we did show an increase in all 5, being English, math, reading, science, and composite. So that was a nice thing to see. STEM, here again, we only have 2 years of data. We did see an increase in the number of test takers from 2014 to 2015. Some things to celebrate is that the scores did go up, some ever so slightly, but we'll take it as an increase in the right direction, and we'll celebrate that. And so we just, here again, we don't see a whole lot of trends. We only had 2 years, but the trend we do see is a very good one because we increased just a little bit at everything. So that's good. Some more so than others. If we look at our ACT results, these were calculated for the district. I do have that reporting. If you look at the number of ACT test takers since 2011, our number of ACT test takers has increased quite nicely, steadily, in increments starting in 2011 through 2015. Here again, that's not just unique to Downingtown, that is a nationwide trend that more and more students are taking the ACT tests. Some states are actually using the ACT tests as their equivalent to our Keystone exams. So if we look at our information, here again, we definitely have things to celebrate because from 2014 to 2015, we did have an increase in all 5 of the test results that we received, and some of those, 4 of those scores, which would be English, reading, science, and the composite scores are the highest they've been in the last 5 years. So not only do we the increase, we also have 4 of the tests having the highest scores they've had in the last 5 years. Any questions on ACTs? All right. Next, the very controversial and interesting SPP scores. Now, if you notice that says SPP scores for Downingtown Area School District, however, Kim is going to turn it, the next slide, and show us that we only got SPP for our high schools. And we're going to talk about how our performance and growth results impacted those SPP results. If you remember, the reason why the middle school and the elementary school did not get results is because of the new PSSA tests. There was a pretty dramatic decrease in those results, so the state thought in all fairness it was best to not give those schools SPP scores, because a lot of their scores are based on achievement and growth on the tests. So the only schools across the state to receive SPP were those that had grade 11. Now, there have been some really big changes too, and additions to the calculations for SPP in regards to student performance and growth on the Keystone exams. Those changes did cause variability in most schools' SPP scores. Some schools across the district showed improvement due to the change in calculations, and others, it didn't impact them positively at all. So it really all depends on where you started as to where your SPP went. So if we look at this slide, what we see here is the biggest change was in literature to the way the calculations were made, and what they did was they took the values from 2014, which are those factor values, and they doubled them. So they took literature achievement, the percentage of kids who get advanced and proficient, instead of being 7.5%, it's now 15%. Instead of PVOS, which is our growth, did we grow students beyond expectation? Instead of being 10%, it's 20%. And for extra credit, if you got any, for lit, they made it 1% to 2%, which was really good. But when they whammied you up top, if you didn't show good lit scores, you probably didn't get that 2% extra credit either. So you took a little bit of a hit there. I didn't put this up there, but if I looked at the numbers, when the calculations were made in 2014 based on the 2014 factor values, ELA made up 23% of the high school's SPP scores. When you look at the new calculations being doubled in 2015, ELA made up 38% of schools' SPP scores. So that was an increase of about 15% by doubling those factor values. Those weren't the only changes, though. If you notice, for the first time, the closing the achievement gaps were also included in SPP for algebra and literature. And that was for all students and historically underperforming students. In the past, only biology was included for closing the achievement gap because the biology test at the elementary level did not change. So they left it go through in 2014. And then in 2015, they included all three of the tests with both of those categories. Now, all students will be all students. Every student who took the test goes into that group. Students who were in the historically underperforming group are students with IEPs, students who are ELL, and students who are economically disadvantaged. They are put into a subgroup called historically underperforming. Whether they are underperforming or not does not matter. They get put in that subgroup, that super subgroup, despite their performance. All right? Those are the three groups that they see as historically underperforming, so they are put into that group. When they did that, and they doubled the ELA results, what happened at that point, ELA now makes up 40% of the high school's SPP scores, because then this got included in, and they also doubled those factor values as well. All right? Meanwhile, algebra and biology each only make up 20% of the school's SPP score. Combined, they do make up the 40% equivalent to what lit makes up. So some people have questioned, and I went to home in school meeting a little while ago, is why do we make those changes? Why did we do this? Well, we didn't do it, the state did it, so here we are. Especially since the Keystone exams didn't change. There was no change in the Keystone exams since we started Keystone exams. So why were some things included this year that weren't included last year? Why was ELA lit doubled? It wasn't in the past. Well, this is what seems to have happened. PSSA no longer has a reading and a writing test. It has a combined ELA test. And when they did that, they doubled or took the two tests, 10 and 10, put them together to make that 20%. So to keep the high school's SPP calculations similar, they just doubled ELA and made that 20% as well. All right? So that, to an extent, greater extent, less extent, is somewhat understandable. All right? But to close the achievement gap for the all students in math and for ELA, what happened was the state decided in 2014, oh, there's going to be a new test in 2015 for the PSSA, so we're not going to include closing the achievement gap for those two subjects for elementary in 2014. To keep the high school's SPP calculations similar, they decided not to include them in the high school's SPP either. That, to a lesser extent, in my opinion, is understandable, but that's why they did. They wanted the calculations at all three levels to run somewhat parallel, so they changed it, which, like I said, for some schools it's good news, for some schools it's not so good news. So that's the what. to the whole situation. So let's see that. So what? So this is what we have. East was at 95.5, then at 97.3, and this year it's at 93.8. West was at 93.0, then 94.1 is now at 87.8. And STEM was at 101.4, 101.4, and now is at 99.1. And just to explain a little bit about what happened at each of those schools, is East, they had an increase in their algebra treatment, which was great. They had an increase in their algebra achievement. That's a good thing. However, it wasn't enough to counterbalance the decreases we had in Lit and Bio. And because the decrease was in Lit, it doubled up and we took a little bit of a hit there. It also had a little bit of a decrease in its NOCI results, which is a standards industry-based test, which is given at TCHS. Because of the Lit results, it didn't get full credit for closing the achievement gap for all students. So we took another, Lit got us there again. And then there was a decrease in the Bio PBOS, or for meeting growth expectation. We took a little bit of a hit there. At West, there was a decrease in the algebra and Lit achievement. And with the Lit factor doubled, it really had a little bit of an impact there, which hurt. Unfortunately, there was no credit earned for closing the achievement gap for all of historically underperforming students for either algebra or Lit. That was a big hit because we got 4 zeros there, so that was a significant hit. So despite some nice gains that West had in its NOCI results and its percentage of advanced in biology and maintaining some really great other scores, it just wasn't enough to counterbalance the new data elements that we had to include this year, and it caused a decrease in West results. STEM also had a decrease in its results in the fact that its Lit PBOS, which is did we grow students, they didn't meet expectation, or we didn't grow them enough, had a negative impact, and because that value was doubled from the years before, it was double the impact. So basically we have a high achieving school, but it's not growing students enough beyond the expectation of what they're expected to grow. They're growing, they're just growing based on what they're expected to do. They're not going above and beyond, so we took a hit there. And then we were impacted by a decrease in the percentage of advanced Lit students as well. Next. Those explanations aren't meant in any way to be excuses. We know we have to own this, and now we have to somehow, the buildings are coming up with great ideas and ways of dealing with to try to counteract this step for this year, because now we know a little bit more. If the state doesn't change SPP on us again, which there are some rumors that they are going to, so we're now aiming for a target which we think where it is. Who knows, they might move in and we might be changing our trajectory again to try to get that moving target and to build this plane while we're flying it. So what we need to do is, that's just the visual we have, but we also need to look what happened to other schools in Chester County, which we'll look at after the next slide. So what this slide tells us is STEM have been ranked #1 in the state. It's now 5th in the state. East is 25th and West is 76th. On a bright note, STEM is still within the top 1% of the state. East is within the top 5%, and West is within the top 13% of the state compared to all the other high schools throughout the state. What happened in Chester County is STEM stayed at the top. Westchester had all 3 of its high schools placed in the top 5 spots, within the top 5 spots. We took the other 2 spots, which was really good. Great Valley saw a bit of a decrease. Kennet High School had some growth to be made. It made the growth and now moved up there. It was more towards the bottom of the pack last year. It's now up there at 88.5. And then we have West. Unionville High School took a considerable dip, and it is basically in the same boat as West is. It got 4 zeros for closing the achievement gap for algebra and for Lit, and that really hurt. When you lose those points, that really hurts. And the rest, and Conestoga, TE, took a really significant drop. Very similar. High achieving, their achievements in the 90%, they didn't grow kids more beyond expectation, and they took a hit in those areas. And the rest are pretty much where they didn't change very much compared to last year. So are there any questions on SPP?
Just so board members that Wissahickon had the highest SVP. If you look them up, you'll see what their proficiency averages are, and all three of our high schools beat that school. What happens with this formula is you get to a certain point, like all of our students in STEM Academy, we were very lucky. Everybody passed the first time, which means this year more than any other year, my junior class this year was very strong, which pulled away from their kids that would normally pass the test, which is why they decreased in some areas. I had 140 some students who were supposed to be advanced. It's never been that high before. It's just the way the system is. We had 80 normally, we have 80 this year. So we'll be back to normal, so it'll swing back. But what happens with this formula is you'll see schools go up. It's like a 6-year cycle. They can't get any higher. So if I have one person not make it this May, my score will fall, probably dramatically. So that's what you need to understand with the system. The system just highlights individual years. There's no way that we're a worse school than we were the year before, or that East and West are any different. It's just a matter of how the points go. Paul and I were at a CCIU workshop where you're looking at a complete change of the system that once again will come out in the winter as this one did. We had no idea this was going to be double in January that we found out. So I think the principals and the teachers did a really great job with what they knew. But it's just a system that it goes up, and you'll see some schools go down. You have Unionville and Conestoga, who are in the top 5% in the nation. Now they're a B-level school. I don't buy it. So it's just a system. Yes, we have to improve everybody. We have to do certain things, but that's kind of the game that is the SBA.
And additionally, it punishes, when the Keystones came out, if you did very well, you're punished by it, because that is closing the achievement gap. Each year you get better and better. So when the Keystones came out, if you were at, say, 70% proficient, you would get all of your closing the achievement gap points if you're growing each year. If you started off in the 90s, as the downtown high schools were, and Conestoga and Unionville, it's really hard to grow from 93 to 94, from 95 to 96. And if you take a little step back, you lose all your closing the achievement gap points. So it's a challenging system, to say the least. We're going to keep working, and we're just waiting for the state to tell us what the targets are for this year, hopefully before the new year comes around.
And just to add on to that whole growth thing about closing the achievement gap, what happened was, when the state didn't do it last year count for them, they didn't take that into account for the calculations. They said, oh, by this year you have to make 2 years worth of growth, even though you were never given a score for 1 year's worth of growth. So that was another thing that got us. If we only had to make the 1 year, because we only had to calculate and include it 1 year, that would have been a different story. But we needed to show 2 years worth of closing that achievement gap, which caused its issues. So this year we got to show 3 years of closing the achievement gap, and it's cumulative. We're at 3 years. We have to show 3 years of closing the achievement gap at this point. We can't say, oh, well, we didn't make it last year, so does that mean we go back to 1 year of growth? No, we have to make all 3 in order to get the points this year, if the system stays the way it is. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Well, and that's also like, you're measuring growth year to year, but they're not the same kids. I don't understand these.
But it's based on those kids. It's those kids against those kids. So we are comparing the same cohort's growth. Yeah.
Well, the problem is they take PSSA's 2 through 8 and turn it into a Keystone exam in 11th grade. So is it really still the same type of test? No. They're looking at a math or science and changing just a bio now to one. So, yeah.
While I'm doing so well, should I just keep going?
May as well just keep going, just keep going.
All right, exciting stuff. That was the very stressful, everybody gets a little upset about it, but this is very good stuff. So what we're doing right now, we're in the process of looking at alternative testing system and alternative data warehouses. So what we did is we got a committee of people together, a very diverse committee of people, made up of teachers, instructional coaches, curriculum leaders, principals, academic advisors, technology department, the special ed department, other administrators, in order to look at these products. And they joined on very readily and wanted to be part of this group, or if not, if they had other things, they recommended somebody else who wanted to be part of this group, and they jumped on board. So if any of them are here, Oh, they do. To talk to this, just jump in or come up here and knock me over, that's fine. We even have a rep from CCIU who asked if she could be on this committee to go through this with us because she's interested in learning more, and she says she's been very impressed with the process we've been going through. She's been impressed with the products that we've looked at, and is definitely looking forward to helping us implement a new product if that is the decision that is made. During meetings, we've discussed why does Downingtown Area School District maybe want to look at a different assessment system and a different data warehouse. We came up with an evaluation tool to help us when we looked at the different products. What things do we want in the testing system? What things do we want in a new data warehouse system? Oh, Deb's here too. She's also on. And there's a couple more people like that. Very good. All right. And we came up with an evaluation tool to say, these are the things that we value. These are the things that we think are important that we want in this new system. So we looked at 3 products, and those 3 products were things that Jonathan Blow and I either saw at CCIU because there were other districts in the county, and CCIU was helping them through this process as well. So last year we went to Saginaw Intermediate Unit and saw some products that they had there, and also some different workshops that we had been to and looked like really valuable products and had some really good recommendations behind them. We met for a few weeks to go over different things. We had a recap the other week. We talked about some more discussions about the 3 products we had demoed. We had made suggestions to have one more demo of one of the products in order to see it again so that we could better understand what it could do for us and to then have some other ideas. And the big question we kept saying is, how can this product help teachers to gain information in order to help students learn more? And that's our whole point. That's what we want, something that can help teachers get information in their hands quickly and easily, and then turn that information into actionable plans to help students to learn more. And what we hope to do is in January 2016, which is coming very quickly, have a recommendation to the board of the product we would like considered. So we talked about Study Island and the benchmarking, the practicing component, and we really feel that we need a product that is more motivating for students. Teachers are saying they hear, the students kind of, oh gosh, this, It's not very motivating. There's not a whole lot going on the screen on Study Island. Just ask the question, answer it, and they keep going. Because we also want something that's a little more aligned to students' need and is a little bit easier to figure out what are those students' needs. We need something that's more flexible with the benchmarks. So we have a little more say into what those benchmarks look like. Can we take questions out? Can we put questions in? Can we change questions? And we need better reporting. We have a huge need for reporting that will give teachers that valuable information they need to help students. The current reporting with Study On, if anyone teachers want to speak up, that we have available to us now is just not sufficient to do that. Any reporting that we do have, that we do like, that the principals like, that the teachers like, has been created in-house, and that's very time-consuming. To go through every report, go through every child, look to see what answer they chose. There's no item analysis. There's no error pattern analysis in Study Island. Everything that you want like that has to be done by hand. I've had numerous discussions with Study Island. We actually had the developers of Study Island. We had a few meetings. They asked if they could come here to talk about the reporting that we do. They were interested in the reporting. They really liked the reporting. They got other districts to say they also like the reporting too, but we still don't have that reporting. So, and there's nowhere in the docket that says a time frame and when that's going to be available. So, also the Study Island contract is up at the end of this year, so it seemed like a really good time to look to see what's available and what maybe we could come up with as an alternative. The other issue we're having is Performance Plus. We would like something that's more user-friendly to input data in full reports. Entering data into Performance Plus has been a little problematic at times, that pulling the data and creating the reports in this latest reporting suite has also caused some issues. We either can't find the reporting we want, or we create the reports that we think we want, and then we went through all these steps, and we can't remember what the steps were to get that reporting, so we have a really hard time recreating what we really wanted in the first place and getting that back. So it's become very confusing, and it doesn't seem to be, in teachers' opinions, user-friendly at all. And what I heard from the group, people that are in the group, is that they just fear many people have given up because it's just been a little bit too time confusing and a little bit frustrating for them. We want a more manageable way to get the data into a format ready for discussion and the action. Obtaining the data for teachers to turn information to turn around to help students shouldn't be the difficult part. Getting the data should be the easy part. Getting into an actionable format should be easy. It's the action plan and how we then use that data to help students learn more should be the quote-unquote difficult part. We're having a lot of difficulty getting access to that data and getting it into teachers' hands. So that's become another problem. We need a robust reporting system where all the information can be stored in one location. Performance Plus isn't all that robust. We also need something that's going to pull our SIS data in and we can access that data on a regular basis, such as daily attendance, behavior issues that are coming up. So we start looking for those early warning indicators, especially at the secondary level, of students who could become dropout statistics. We need a system where we can put all our data in one location. For instance, right now we can't put FNP results in Performance Plus because FNP has more performance levels than Performance Plus lets us put in. So the schools have come up with beautiful spreadsheets. They're huge mammoth spreadsheets. They're beautiful. They're gorgeous. As a data person, it just warms my heart. However, we have data now all over the place. We have some data here, we have some data there. We don't have a complete picture of any student on any one platform, and we really need that to happen. Plus, having data all over the place becomes a security issue. We really got to keep our hands on that and watch that so that data doesn't get away on us. Next. So we looked at these products, and what we decided we really wanted, what the products are available, is to be able to customize formative, summative, and benchmark assessments. So we can easily create and disperse those common assessments. We already have many district common assessments, but how wonderful it would be if they were online. We could house them, we could distribute them quickly, have the data come back, get the data to the teachers quickly in order to turn that around to help students. All right? That would also encourage teachers to collaborate with each other on curriculum instruction and assessment and get those discussions going. And they would be easy to share. The next thing is we want to have access to a large bank of resources for student practice. That might not be like a study hour practice every day. That might be going to some other place where students learn a little bit more, they practice a little bit more. Can we give students like a pre-test, have them do some lessons on their own, then give them a post-test? We thought that was pretty cool. And also, based on the assessments they take, give them activities to do right from the system in which the students took assessment. Plus, the group felt that it's very important to provide teachers with professional development via the train-the-trainer model, and then it was important to have somebody within Pennsylvania who would be our direct contact to help us through implementation. So we looked for vendors who could do that for us as well, so there would be a person close by who helps with the implementation and professional development. The data warehouse, we look for something that's integrated, teacher, user-friendly, so we can pull data from our student input system daily. We also look for quick access to updated dashboards of key information. You click a button, there's the student, there's all the information. A comprehensive display of longitudinal data for each student. All the data is stored in one place for as long as they're here. Click of the button, there everything is. We can get the whole package, the whole picture right there. And again, the group felt it was very important for that whole train-the-trainer. Plus, they agreed, which was very nice. I believe they all agreed to be the trainers who would be trained to do the turnaround training, which was awesome. And now we were trying to find something else that teachers need a little more training. They could do it 24/7 because they offer it online. They have like a hotline that you can call in for support as needed. So in summary, what the group came up with, and we looked for something that fills these needs, we wanted a testing system with easy to access reporting to provide teachers with information to help students learn more and to achieve more. Goes back to that growth, high achieving, how do we get them to grow more? We need the data that tells us where we can make that growth. They want to have common district assessments, which we already have, but they would like them to be online. Again, so we can get that data to teachers quickly in order to help students achieve more and grow. And we'd like to have a robust data warehouse that houses the complete picture of every student with the data being located and reported in one location. So those are the things that we look for. Anybody in the group want to comment? Well, they're smiling. I don't know if that's because I'm sitting down or it's just like, oh yeah, Kelly, whatever you say. Anybody? Any questions?
Thank you, Kelly. A lot of information.
Always.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the Downingtown Area School District Foreign Exchange Program application. So if we could just see that application. I'll just remind Curriculum Council that last spring we had the pleasure of discussing a foreign exchange experience with Denmark, and that conversation brought to our attention differences between field trips and foreign exchange programs. Soon after Curriculum Council last spring, a group of board members, teachers, and admin met to discuss what departments who were offering foreign exchange programs were doing currently. And we had a very engaging conversation that we followed up with in November. We're going to be showing this application.
It's on my screen, it's not on mine.
There we go. Okay, so what you see in front of you on the screen is a Downingtown Area School District Foreign Exchange Program application that this representative group that met in November crafted. What we hope will be accomplished with this document is some consistency across the district in the application process. Because folks, as you might imagine, we're doing different things. So hopefully this will give us some consistency. Since this application is part of policy, Dr. Reed is going to take this to the policy committee and ask that it be added as administrative guideline to policy 121, which is our field trip policy. So I'm presenting this here to Curriculum Council so that we have some closure on what began at this council, but approval will go through Dr. Reed's policy committee. Okay? Okay, thank you. Any questions about the, looks great, right? Okay, just informational, I just thought this was important for Curriculum Council to know. High school level 2 courses, I know Mrs. Bertoni brought up that we have been discussing the merits of level 2 courses and the merits in terms of the benefit for students. Some questions we've been asking ourselves. Do all the students in level 2 courses benefit from being scheduled in these courses? How are level 2 students faring on Keystone exams? In other words, is instruction to this targeted group benefiting them in that we're seeing higher gains on standardized tests and on state administered assessments? So to that end, we want to move in a direction of taking a closer look at courses. So for the 16-17 school year, what you'll see is that level 2 courses will be listed in the program of study, but there will be a clear delineation that principal approval is required. Level 2 courses will not be included on the course selection sheets. So in order for a student to schedule a level 2 course, the student will need to go directly to principal to have that approved. Okay, so that's the change we're looking at for 16-17 as we continue our conversations.
And a program of study comes next month.
The program of study will come, yes, to the January Curriculum Council for approval. All right, so we were waiting to see if Dr. Mussolini were going to appear, and that's why, Mr. Conti D'Antonio, that we waited for the calendar, just so you know there was some logic to putting you in a different place on this program information agenda. So, Rob, if you would be kind enough
Thank
to...
you. Okay. Okay, is there anything up there for the calendar?
Do you want the calendar or survey?
Let's put up the survey first. Okay, thank you. All right, so if you can make that as large as possible. As you can see, we sent a survey out, and hopefully some of you took it. And we really had a few questions that were important. One was about the August day. Initially, there was discussion with teachers, and they said that having 4 days in a row, having that first work day on a Monday and 3 in-service days or PD days was really rough. Is there an option that you can have? So the question was, would you prefer to have an optional day any day before that first day, which in 16-17 is going to be the 23rd? And overwhelmingly, you can see that people were in favor of having that choice. So that was the first question. The second question was the parent-teacher conferences. As you can see, the consensus was not as strong. There were a lot of discussion and a lot of comments, as you'll see in a few minutes, about moving the conferences, primarily from elementary folks who wanted the conferences later to coincide with the trimester. The counter argument to that was, I think, that it might be a little bit too late to meet with parents in November, or in December rather than November. The other question about those conferences was the confusion this year about the time that was pushed from the early dismissal Wednesday added on to the election day Tuesday, which required everybody to stay till 4:20. I'm not sure if that, a lot of people did not like that. Some people were just confused about it. But as you can see, 63% said that they would agree with that for this year. So consequently, on the calendar, you will not see a change there. The next one, however, did promote a change in the calendar, which was the December Professional Development Day scheduled for the 14th. We were looking at having a professional development or a early dismissal day on the 13th, which would have taken the two of them together. Dr. McNeil's idea originally was to try to maintain instructional weeks. We put that out. More people decided that December 7th would be a better time for the early dismissal. So the revised calendar, you'll see that December 7th is the early dismissal, marked in green, and then the December 13th is the full PD day, which will be primarily data. We then asked the question about the March 2017 PD day. According to the calendar, because of the restrictions of when the working collaboration day is, we decided to put the early dismissal on the 2nd, the March 3rd, which is a Friday, full PD day, and then the March 6th work collaboration day together. This gives parents a chance to plan a few days away if they want to. So that was one of the options. The other option was to make the early dismissal day later on the 8th, the following Wednesday, which would mean that you have a work collaboration day, a full day back, and then a early dismissal. The third option was to push it back to the 15th. And again, getting back to the calendar, looking at having, when you see the calendar the way it is right now, you'll see that after these days, after this March 6th day, you have 3 full weeks of instruction before the PSSA window is opened up. So that was one of the reasons for that. If you can scroll up to some of the comments about conferences. As I mentioned, a lot of people want more time for conferences, particularly elementary people. And I've heard that quite a bit, that they need more time. They didn't like the 4:30 idea on Tuesday, as you can see. Some people suggested having it before Thanksgiving. I think I already mentioned that. Then we had some general comments. I'm going to move up to the next page, I think. There you had some general comments. One of the big questions with that March 3rd and that March 6th was kindergarten. Kindergarten teachers needed time to prepare for that. So that was one valid point that was made that we were not able to accommodate, which is unfortunate. General questions about snow days. A lot of people do not like having snow days built into the spring break. It's very hard to plan any kind of vacation for yourself. And that's certainly a valid point as well. A few general comments about we break up the weeks too much. Too many disruptions, not enough instructional time. You know, one of the comments here towards the end is, you know, do we really need so much professional development? Wouldn't our time be better spent with instruction? So that's certainly worth discussion as well. I've heard other comments about trying to put back more conference days to the spring, and having another conference time in the spring, which was really not talked about on the survey. So as you can see, I didn't sugarcoat anything. These were just directly from the responses. Some good, some bad, some in between. And I think if you put up the calendar, you can see where we're at with the latest version, which I'm not sure which version it is now, but we're getting on to about 10 or 11. So the one question we had, which we'll have to talk to the union about, is we did change that day called Teacher Work Day, and we have to, it's called Select One, and I guess that'll have to be a memorandum of understanding. Talk to you about that. So the only change that we made, as I mentioned, as a result of the survey was down in December, but you can see that because of the Jewish holidays and other things that are beyond our control, we're kind of mandated to have certain days off, like October 12th. Oh, that's better. And there you can see the November conference days around election, and that'll be a presidential election, so that should be a little bit bigger. The work collaboration day before Thanksgiving. So then we move into December, and as a result of the survey, we moved that early dismissal, which is sort of greenish there, from the 13th to the 7th. This year we are going to, as you can see in the center, we're going to color code the PSSA windows for testing and keystones. I feel it's very important for the community to know when these are for planning purposes. Okay, if we scroll back up to the second semester of January, you can see that we have MLK Day and then an early dismissal. That's a little bit of a disruptive week as well. Coming back for a full day and then an early dismissal. February, have President's Day on the 20th. Since Easter break is late this year, it's a bit of a long haul for teachers particularly, but for community with that March 3rd and 6th, that's a possible time to get away as well. So as you can see with the March dates, the survey did not indicate that we should move that second early dismissal day to the 8th and 15th. And as I mentioned earlier, the way it is now, as you can see up there, you have 3 solid weeks of instruction before PSSAs, which is one of the concepts that we tried to maintain throughout. April looks hectic, but if you see in the center there, that middle week, the red, that's the holiday break. And of course, as you saw from the comments, some of the comments were, you know, don't put them as emergency makeup days. But then I guess the counter argument is, if you put them as emergency makeup days, you get more time before testing. So, I mean, there's good and bad for everything. So April's a bit of a mess. May, you can see the PSSA and Keystone windows. And then we are out pretty quickly in the beginning of June. Graduations are there, 7, 8, 9. So that's the latest.
So is there any more discussion? Based on the survey results, the input that we had, what you see in front of you is the calendar that we will ask the board to approve in January. We still have a memo of understanding that we have to work through with Mr. Cruzen and DAEA regarding the August teacher choice, choose one day in August. So that's why we're not asking for approval this month. But as you can see, teacher workday, select one, that has to be a memo of understanding. So we'll be looking for this calendar. Any other conversation, input? Okay. Yes.
The order of when we're coming back, makeup days, has that changed at all? Can you go over that?
No, it really hasn't. The first one, it's down in the yellow there, in the very center, down the very bottom.
Can you make that bigger, Kim?
Yeah, the first one is February 20th, which is the President's Day. Then we do the May 26th, which is the Friday before Memorial Day. And then you can see this, and this is the controversial piece, then we start taking the days off of the Easter break. The Wednesday, actually it's the Wednesday, Thursday, Monday. And then we move to then we start putting them on the end of the year. So that has not changed.
It's supposed to be a very mild winter, though.
Next year.
That's next year.
I'm curious, Rob, since some of those comments that you accumulated are the same comments we hear every year, what the disruption to instruction, the integrity of leading the spring break for families to travel. Is there any plan to respond to the staff regarding rationale for those things? I think that's what I hear sometimes from the staff, that they might give input, but they never hear why that wasn't.
Actually, Carol, I don't really think that's fair though, because
I'm just
personally,
asking.
well, I'm just saying because it's some people, it's not a majority.
Right, and we don't know how many people put, we're having some people that comment. I'm just asking, do they ever get a response in terms of why the number of, I'm just curious, like.
But I think the response is because the dates occur prior to PSSA testing, and if we're gonna lose snow days, we wanna get them in before the testing. The opposite is, and I don't firm believer of tagging them on to the end of the year, but then everybody complains when they're in school till the 16th of June. So it's a no-win situation. We certainly could put that out in a newsletter,
I would think sometimes
just to.
The report card?
We could put that in the report card, absolutely, but I think that's the answer.
Right, I think sometimes it helps people to know that there's a thought process, and they're not my comments, it's just that I notice they're the same comments every year, and that the same things come to curriculum leaders every year. Teachers are frustrated by the lack of instructional time, they break up in the middle of weeks, and they're in the middle of a concept, and the kids come back and they don't remember it, and we hear some of the same things. So if they knew there was a rationale for some of those, or they knew that, like you just had an idea, Stacy, that maybe there'd be an alternation, like the next year, maybe it wouldn't be at the end of the year. I'm just saying that it sometimes helps people to understand there is a rationale.
I mean, the reason that I was told was that you get more days in instruction prior to the and I don't think there's any other solution to that other than.
Right. And maybe if they
taking
bring
away
that
some of the other
response,
elements.
right.
On the other
Can you
hand,
move it back up so we can see where the spring break is?
on the other hand, Carol, the survey results did change the December stuff.
Right.
So I mean, it's not that we're unresponsive, it's that, we're trying to keep everything balanced, but.
Was that one of the questions? I mean, I'm just saying, like, were all of those specific questions,
So not all of them were a choice in the survey. So built-in snow days is something that we believe makes sense for the district. So we didn't ask the question, do you like losing spring break days or not? Those were comments that people made based on their looking at the calendar. So it wasn't as though we asked the question, people responded, oh, I hate losing spring break, and we said, oh, well, tough for you, we're losing spring break. That wasn't so we didn't pose any question that wasn't able to make a change in the calendar. Building in snow days is something that we believe makes sense educationally. So that's why we didn't ask the question of people. And to your point of instructional days, we believe that professional development, early dismissal, is beneficial. And having those days for professional development is something we worked hard to have. If we have to continue to modify, mold, recreate what it looks like, that's incumbent upon us. But if teachers are complaining about instructional time loss because of an early dismissal, well, we're not asking the question, do you want to do away with early dismissal days? So what we tried to do was stagger the days so that you weren't having a couple of days in a single week. Or that multiple weeks weren't being disjointed. But in October, you're looking at that, we could not help October. We have to have the holiday the 12th, precedent's been set. The other day, we've historically, precedent's been set, used as a professional development day. So when do we put in the early dismissal, professional development? So that means 3 weeks in October are disjointed, but
As opposed to this year where September was more chopped
yes.
up because of the same issue.
Since
It falls when it falls, and in the perfect world in my mind, it would never be that chopped up, but it's somewhat contractual agreement, somewhat calendar and the way holidays fall, and, trying to cram as much instruction in when it's beneficial as possible.
Right.
We're gonna make everybody happy.
No. Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Conti D'Antonio. So as I said, this will come to the board next January, not to curriculum council. All right, we have 10 minutes left. We have our business ed department and our nurse health report that we have to get in 10 minutes. So, you each have 5 minutes. Who is first on the schedule? I'm not sure. I have business ed and then nurses. So Suzanne, you have quite a few slides. Can you summarize those in 5 minutes for us?
Absolutely.
All right, you can do it. And remember, folks, that our focus is on professional development. Are you okay, Suzanne?
All right, yes. My ankle is just telling me I'm old, uncoordinated. So the past couple of showcases have focused on the process of professional development, so I thought that I would show you the outgrowth of the student engagement and professional development by, so we've learned from the Marzano book, we've learned different strategies for student engagement and strategies for retention. And we've implemented quite a few of these in the department. If you could just view it. Okay, so this, practice by doing. We have both at East, West, and STEM. We work with the Exton Chamber of Commerce, and the students run a business. And this is the breakfast that we are treated to, a luncheon, every year. And this is showing the immediate use of a lesson. This is a lesson on scarcity in Introduction to Business. Okay, that's all right. This is practice by doing. And if this was actually going through PowerPoint, you would be able to see by clicking on the little light matrix that the students animated, a little guy to jump up and down on the light matrix. On the little light. Okay, so moving on. Practice by doing. In business law, we actually seat a jury and learn the voir dire process. So these are students at East. Immediate use, again, this was students putting their geometry knowledge to use using those wonderful iPads. And inconsequential competition, this is another business law competition of who could guess. This is practice by doing. Google Voice Talk at DMS, writing their English language arts assignment by talking to the computer. Practice by doing, again, entrepreneurship class that they've set up a business, and this was the students for the Cougar Corp selling their products. And yes, we are still using formative assessments, and this is a teacher at LMS using clickers. And we just thank you for your support.
Thank you, Mrs. Candicchi. Great job. The stress of the time, the stress of the PowerPoint slides. All right. Mrs. Travis. Oh, the epinephrine, okay.
Yeah, I got the
You can do this in 5 minutes.
I got the adrenaline going. Most of the times when you think of nursing, you think accessory. Why necessary? Your children will not learn if they're not healthy. Your children will not learn if they are not alive. This is a bill that helped to ensure that one of our children in Downingtown was alive. Act 195 was imperative because anaphylactic reaction kills. And I can show you all these statistics. These don't matter to you. The next one will. Approximately 25% of all anaphylactic reactions that occur for the first time occur within the school day. That's a lot. Act 195 made sure that epinephrine was available for schools. I want to tell you that Downingtown has had this available from the time I came, which was 22 years ago. So we were ahead of the curve. Many of the schools in Pennsylvania did not have this accessible. Okay, keep going. I'm just going to go over the fact that we have always done this. We have always ensured that staff was trained. We have always ensured that we kept up our knowledge. We have always ensured that students knew how to self-inject. Okay, keep going. The important thing is we need staff to recognize when an allergic reaction occurs because it is immediate. If you do not act immediately, we've got a dead student. Keep going. Act 195 worked. We had a student at Downingtown East for the first time develop an anaphylactic reaction. And it was a teacher who was trained that morning to act. How this bill worked is because there wasn't a consistency among the state, we had options of where could we send the teachers to get this training. And even in with Downingtown, different buildings did it different ways, and we needed to be consistent. We needed congruency. So the teacher all the teachers that the principals, the administrators had to buy into this. They determined in their building who was going to get trained. Some buildings, it was all the staff. Went online, did the course, how to go to the school nurse, the certified school nurse, not the health room nurse, the certified school nurse was responsible for going through the mandated training with the EpiPen and the auto injector, the Auto-Q. Next one. Because of this program, our administrator, Mr. Hurley, who decided who was going to get trained in his building, determined Paula Swabenland that morning taught Brent Lewis how to administer an EpiPen, and on the bus for a band event, recognized that a student was having an anaphylactic reaction, and for the first time, that student did not have an EpiPen ordered for them. That student's life was saved. So, the moral of the story is the nurses, the health, the welfare of our student is critical. And we appreciate the time and the support that we get in order to train. Probably the key is, if you're looking at food allergies within school, that particular student, it was a bee sting. I'm not sure how you avoid that, but prevention is the key, and I think the end is just some websites to help. So, there you go.
Thank you, Mrs. Travis. Always very pertinent and helpful information. Thank you. That concludes our curriculum council for December. Everyone have a happy holiday season.
I made the mistake.
I think it's a Thursday.